Good evening. Our top story tonight, the Minnesota Vikings versus the Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday Night Football. Yes, football is back. It is a beautiful thing. We are on our way to week 2, and that is why we have a key for all 16 teams in the NFC heading into week 2, going to give you the insider information that you need on all the NFC teams on Player Profiler today. Starting with the Minnesota Vikings. This is a big game ahead for Jordan Addison. The Philadelphia Eagles are likely going to be without James Bradberry. He did not practice in the estimated report on Monday, didn't practice in the estimated report on Tuesday, Wednesday. He's got to go pretty hard on Wednesday. Otherwise, James Bradberry will not clear concussion protocol in time. We know from last year, granted, different defensive coordinator, but last year Darius Slay was all over Justin Jefferson. One-on-one, Darius Slay won that matchup, had 2 interceptions, dropped another 2, could have had 4 interceptions for Kirk Cousins. But if James Bradberry is out and Darius Slay is following Justin Jefferson around, it's going to be a big day. A big day for Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison, of course, tied with KJ Osborne for third on the team in targets with 6, caught 4 for 61 and a touchdown. Justin Jefferson, his usual self, with 150 yards. But this is the day that Jordan Addison breaks through for the Minnesota Vikings against the Philadelphia Eagles. As for the Eagles, we're going to be looking at this backfield because Kenneth Gainwell did not practice on Monday, did not practice on Tuesday. Today is the pivotal day. I expect Kenneth Gainwell to play. It is a rib injury, but we see all the time players power through rib injuries. Unless they're broken, Kenneth Gainwell is playing. And even if they're broken, Kenneth Gainwell still very well could play. He had 41 of the 66 snaps for this offense for the Philadelphia Eagles. He was the bell cow. 14 out of 16 carries went to Kenneth Gainwell. 6 running back targets, 4 of them went to Kenneth Gainwell. Catches all 4 of those targets. 74 yards from scrimmage. Kenneth Gainwell is the real deal. Now, this is not the game to necessarily play Kenneth Gainwell because he's hurt. He's banged up. I expect him to play, which makes it a headache. Rashad Penny probably going to be active. DeAndre Swift going to get a little bit more work because Kenneth Gainwell isn't fully healthy. But then he's going to have 10 days off. Kenneth Gainwell is going to have 10 full days to heal. And at that point, Kenneth Gainwell is going to be in your lineup every single week as an RB2. We have seen what the Philadelphia Eagles want to do, and they want to get Kenneth Gainwell the ball. And that's just an I told you so for the Podfather. It really is Kenneth Gainwell. Could be the real deal for the Philadelphia Eagles. Moving on to the NFC North, in the Minnesota Vikings rivals, the Detroit Lions play the Seattle Seahawks. And the Detroit Lions, all sorts of interesting. Out of the 70 snaps the Detroit Lions offense played, 55 of them went to David Montgomery. 21 of the 28 running back carries went to David Montgomery. 74 yards and a touchdown for Demo as well. Ran 19 routes. Very much outsnapped, outpaced Jahmyr Gibbs in all of the usage stats. Jahmyr Gibbs only ran 9 routes. But David Montgomery, goose egg in the passing game. In just 9 routes, we saw 2 targets for Jahmyr Gibbs, caught both for 18 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to earn a role as the season goes on. It might not be this week that Jahmyr Gibbs breaks out, but soon, in the very immediate future, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have that breakout game for the Detroit Lions. Remember, Alvin Kamara was seeing less than 10 touches per game over his first 4 games with the New Orleans Saints, and then it exploded to 16 touches per game. Dan Campbell was there when Alvin Kamara was drafted by the Saints. Dan Campbell plans to use Jahmyr Gibbs as his new Alvin Kamara, and it is going to be glorious in fantasy football when it happens. But for now, expect another healthy dose of David Montgomery. I'm playing both David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. This Seattle Seahawks defense is looking rough. Expect Amon-Ra St. Brown to absolutely eat. We saw Puka Nacua go off against the Seattle Seahawks. We saw also Tutu Atwell eating over the middle. Oh, this Lions offense is going to shred the Seattle Seahawks defense. One that really not good. We thought Seattle Seahawks might have improved. Bobby Wagner, turns out that return, not so good. But what is good is our friends with @PlayerProfiler, Podfather. Take it away.
Hey, we got to talk about Rival Fantasy today. Rival Fantasy, they're a huge supporter of everything we do, the podcast channel, the YouTube channel. It's possible because of Rival, and they have an incredible new offer with promo code PLAYER. Promo code PLAYER, you double your deposit up to $200, and you get $25 in bonus bucks. So it's $225 additional to play in NFL preseason. You can do their props on the fantasy book where it's over, under, up to 5 guys. The more over-unders you hit, the higher your payout. And they have their challenges for the community. You can say, hey, I think that player X is going to go over this many fantasy points, and someone takes you up on it. They take the other side. It's great. I love their fantasy bingo, where you can do 5 across, you can do 4 in the corner, black it out, just predicting fantasy points on your favorite players, especially in preseason. The promo code is PLAYER, where they match your deposit up to $200 plus those $25 in bonus bucks. This offer is insane.
Love our friends over at Rival Fantasy and love what we saw from Aaron Jones for the Green Bay Packers. But this is a true committee. Aaron Jones was actually outsnapped 28-29 by A.J. Dillon, both pretty much 50% of the Green Bay Packers snaps. A.J. Dillon had fewer routes run, 10 routes to 16 routes for Aaron Jones, but A.J. Dillon had more carries, 13 carries for A.J. Dillon, 9 for Aaron Jones. Also had more total touches, both of them had 2 receptions, so that's 15 touches for A.J. Dillon and 11 touches for Aaron Jones. But Aaron Jones is just a hell of a lot better on his touches. 127 yards. He has 2 TDs, 11.5 yards per touch, whereas A.J. Dillon, not particularly effective. His 13 carries averages 1.5 yards. 19 yards rushing for A.J. Dillon, 17 yards receiving. That's 2.4 yards per touch. A.J. Dillon might not be as good as Aaron Jones. Doesn't look as explosive, but Aaron Jones might not play this week. Aaron Jones battling a hamstring injury. We saw him pull up on his second touchdown, the big reception that he had. So we'll see what happens with Aaron Jones and his hamstring injury. A.J. Dillon this week against the Atlanta Falcons could be a volume play, but if Aaron Jones is playing, I think I'm avoiding A.J. Dillon. The Panthers didn't get a whole lot going on the ground against the Falcons. Looks like a strong defense against the run. So I'm into Aaron Jones, and if Aaron Jones doesn't play, then I'm into A.J. Dillon. As for the Chicago Bears who got walloped by the Green Bay Packers, they now face the Bucs. And I'm looking at this backfield for the Chicago Bears. We see Khalil Herbert start the game, but we see Roschon Johnson end up leading the team in snaps. Now, granted, a lot of this is garbage time. A lot of this is must-pass situations, but that's all right, because we always knew Roschon Johnson's path to playing time was going to be on third downs, was going to be as a receiver, as a pass protector, and Roschon Johnson did not disappoint. Roschon Johnson led all running backs, not just the rookies, all running backs in the NFL. Roschon Johnson leads them with 7 targets in his debut, catches 6 of them, ends up going for 35 yards. Roschon Johnson is here, and he is going to slowly just chip away at Khalil Herbert's rushing share. But for now, the biggest thing is Dante Foreman. Dante Foreman needs to be relegated. For some reason, he gets 21 snaps. For some reason, he runs 15 routes. Dante Foreman runs more routes than Khalil Herbert. Doesn't work out in the passing game, though. Catches 2 balls for 8 yards, 5 carries for 16 yards. It's 3.4 yards per touch for Dante Foreman behind a bad Bears offensive line. This Bears offensive line, not great in the debut. Doesn't look like it's being fixed at all. And so Dante Foreman struggles. Whereas Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson, they make their own way. Khalil Herbert does it in the passing game, which isn't a historical strength for Khalil Herbert. Catches all 3 of his targets for 37 yards. Not great on the ground. 9 carries for 27 yards, just 3 yards a carry. Roschon Johnson outperforms him on the ground, 20 yards on 5 carries for Roschon. Roschon outperforms him as a receiver, at least in terms of receptions. Khalil Herbert more efficient. But make no mistake, Roschon Johnson is coming for Khalil Herbert's job, especially if the Bears are losing or in competitive games, which it looks like they're going to be unless things change real quick. Moving on to the NFC East, the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, who dominated against the New York Jets, going to face a New York team once again, this time in Dallas, and it's the Jets. And the thing that I loved the most about the Dallas Cowboys, at receiver, it was nice to see Brandon Cooks get targets. He didn't do a whole lot with them, but that will come. He and Michael Gallup will be taking the brunt against Sauce Gardner, where CeeDee Lamb, he's going to be in the slot. CeeDee Lamb might have a big game against the New York Jets. But what I'm also looking at is Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard is a true blue bell cow. Plays over 60% of the snaps in a blowout, in a game where he gets pulled off at the end because they're winning so bad. Only 9 snaps for Rico Dowdle. He gets 6 carries on 9 snaps, completely telegraphs that they're going to run when Rico Dowdle comes into the game. Deuce Vaughn comes into the game and 6 carries, 8 yards, nothing special. This is Tony Pollard's backfield. If it wasn't a blowout, we would have seen even more Tony Pollard. 14 carries, 2 touchdowns for Tony Pollard, 5.0 yards per carry. Tony Pollard is a bell cow, and it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. Unlike Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson, not a bell cow, not a guarantee he doesn't go somewhere else, either in a trade, either at the very least he's gone next year in free agency, because Brian Robinson has the Isaiah Pacheco role for the Kansas City Chiefs. But even more importantly than having the early down grinder role, Brian Robinson ends up running more routes than Antonio Gibson as well. A career high 21 routes for Brian Robinson, 18 for Antonio Gibson. That's fine. But Brian Robinson, 19 carries, 21 routes. They're getting involved in the running game, getting them involved in the passing game. Catches one of his 2 targets, scores a touchdown. Whereas Antonio Gibson, he catches his only target for 10 yards, but his 3 carries go for 9 yards and a fumble. Breaks my heart, Antonio Gibson. I keep pounding the table that this is the year Antonio Gibson is going to break out. Looks like I might be wrong once again, but it's just week 1. And Antonio Gibson in the Jerick McKinnon role. We know Jerick McKinnon went hot down the stretch. We can still hope. And we can hope things turn around for the New York Giants. Giants didn't show up against the Dallas Cowboys at all. And Parris Campbell was the exact same guy he was with the Indianapolis Colts. Leads the team in routes run. Runs a route on 38 of 49 passing attempts. Obviously, towards the end of the game, Daniel Jones gets pulled. Parris Campbell gets pulled, so that skews it a little bit. But Parris Campbell out there running wind sprints. He gets 4 targets. He catches 1 for 2 yards. Doesn't matter at all. Same guy he was with the Indianapolis Colts. He's out there running routes. He was healthy last year and not getting targets, not getting catches. Darius Slayton, second on the team in routes run. He catches 3 of 4 for just 15 yards. Doesn't matter. Isaiah Hodgins, he has 1 reception. It's a 24-yarder. It's the biggest play of the day. Doesn't matter. 1 of 3 receptions for Isaiah Hodgins. He's the wide receiver 3. Looks like Jalen Hyatt is trying to get in the mix as well. 20 routes run for Jalen Hyatt. That's the wide receiver 4. Doesn't catch his only target. Darren Waller is really the only guy that I trust in the New York Giants offense right now. He leads team targets with 5, leads team receptions with 3. and leads the team in yards with 36. That's how bad the New York Giants were against the Dallas Cowboys. But I still trust Darren Waller. I still trust Saquon Barkley. And I'm not trusting anyone else. No one else even worth a roster spot at this point. Maybe Jalen Hyatt if you want to stash, but you're not going to be playing Parris Campbell, Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt, Isaiah Hodgins with confidence. You're just not. Moving on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. People want to make a big deal in the NFC South that, Rachaad White, he wasn't as good as PlayerProfiler said he was. 2.3 yards per carry, only 39 rushing yards for Rachaad White. PlayerProfiler was wrong. Except Rachaad White was a bell cow for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He has 17 of the 24 running back carries. We see 5 from Sean Tucker, 2 from Chase Edmonds. Both are just breather backs, irrelevant. Rachaad White, 17 carries, fantastic. Adds 4 targets, fantastic. The Minnesota Vikings defense is much improved from the unit it was last year. So now, against the Chicago Bears, a bad defense, a defense that we saw Aaron Jones dominate in the running game and in the receiving game. This is where we see who Rachaad White truly is. Going to be a bell cow once again. Not worried about Sean Tucker. 4 targets for Sean Tucker. That's fine. Doesn't matter. Not as good on his targets as Rachaad White is. So this is the game where bell cow Rachaad White shows why PlayerProfiler has been hyping him for so long. And shout out Trey Palmer. Shout out Trey Palmer. Catches 2 of his 3 targets, 8 yards, and a touchdown. My guy, Trey Palmer. Told you, I've been telling you for months now, he's the real deal for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's going to be the wide receiver 2. Maybe not for Caleb Williams, but for Drake May, for Shadir Sanders. Shadir Sanders eligible? I keep forgetting to look that up. Anyways, moving on to another team that needs a new quarterback, the Atlanta Falcons. Desmond Ridder. Now, he completes 15 of 18 passes, 115 yards. I guess. I mean, he's accurate. According to the stats, 15 of 18, that's pretty good. 115 yards, not good. The fact that 77 of those yards came after the catch, which means Desmond Ridder, on his completions, 2.5 yards in the air is the average completion for Desmond Ridder. And then it's just everyone else doing the work after the catch. 6.4 yards per attempt for Desmond Ridder. That is pitiful, especially because he gets sacked 4 times. 4 sacks for Desmond Ridder. 6 first downs as a passer. Desmond Ridder is not good. Taylor Heineke is going to play this season. So if you're in Superflex, Taylor Heineke, a good guy to roster, because Desmond Ridder, if he keeps playing like this, which he will, because he's not a particularly accurate quarterback, Taylor Heineke's going to step in at some point. And that'll be good for all the pass catchers, because Kyle Pitts, part-time player, plays 31 of 51 snaps, 4 targets. Tied for second on the team in targets, I guess. Oh, actually 3 targets. Sorry, tied for second on the team with 3 targets. Mac Hollins, Kyle Pitts, and Tyler Algier all get 3 targets. Leading in targets is Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson, so good. You see, Bijan Robinson, you understand why he was the 101 in so many drafts other than Superflex, and has been for years now. Bijan Robinson is that dude. Leads the team in targets with 6, 10 carries, 56 yards on the ground, 5.6 yards per carry. Bijan Robinson, a great rusher, but so is Tyler Algier. Tyler Algier gets more carries than Bijan Robinson. Not quite as active in the passing game, but still pretty active. 75 yards and 2 TDs for Tyler Algier on the ground. This is a true 1-2 punch for the Atlanta Falcons at running back. It's going to swap them out over and over and over again. And at this point, you can't trust Drake London. 1 target, no receptions. It's ugly for the Atlanta Falcons. I can't wait for Taylor Heineke to take over. As for the Carolina Panthers, Cody Carpentier, our friend over at Roster Watch, has been hyping Hayden Hurst week after week after week. And Hurst leads the team in targets with 7. 7 of the team's 29 targets go to Hayden Hurst. He was the security blanket for Bryce Young. He catches 5 of those 7 targets, 41 yards and a touchdown. Second on the team in targets was Terrace Marshall. Adam Thielen, just 2 targets for Adam Thielen. He does not matter for the Carolina Panthers. This is Hayden Hurst in the short to intermediate game. Hayden Hurst is the security blanket. Once DJ Chark comes back, he'll be the one getting deep targets down the field. But Hurst is a tight end that you can just trust week in and week out for the Carolina Panthers. As for the New Orleans Saints, who will be facing the Carolina Panthers, Michael Thomas leads the team in routes run with 36, 3 more routes than Chris Olave. But Chris Olave, 10 targets, catches 8 for 112 yards. Whoo! Chris Olave is who we thought he was. And we know that Derek Carr loves to lock onto a player, whether it was Devontae Adams, whether it was Darren Waller, whether it was Hunter Renfrow. Derek Carr is just going to spam you over and over and over again. And Chris Olave is the player to make that work. Can't wait to see how this turns out. Behind Chris Olave, it's going to be a rotation as who's getting the most targets. Michael Thomas, second on the team in targets with 7, but Rashid Shaheed ends up getting 5 targets. He's third. Roschon Johnson also gets 6 targets for Rashid Shaheed, 5 for Roschon Johnson. These are all fine for auxiliary pieces. This is Chris Olave's passing offense. Roschon Johnson's going to have his weeks. Michael Thomas, Rashid Shaheed going to have their weeks. Love this consolidated passing game for the New Orleans Saints. We'll see if Derek Carr can keep it up, though. Moving down to the NFC West, our final division. The 49ers face the Los Angeles Rams, and it seems clear, at least early on, who Brock Purdy's guy is, and that is Brandon Aiyuk. We have heard all offseason that Brandon Aiyuk is ready to take that next step. He looks like a elite wide receiver in the making. Leads the team with 8 targets, catches all 8 for 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. Deebo Samuel, he and George Kittle getting in on the action as well. 6 targets each, 55 yards for Deebo. Adds 2 carries as well for 8 yards. Not as efficient as Brandon Aiyuk. George Kittle, 6 targets, catches 3 for 19 yards. Not a great day from George Kittle. That'll come. Kittle will have his weeks. Deebo will have his weeks. But early on, it looks like this might be Aiyuk's passing game, and I really hope it is. As for the backfield, this is Christian McCaffrey's backfield. We thought that Elijah Mitchell might see some work, that they might try to keep Christian McCaffrey healthy, but in a blowout, in a game that was over when it started, Christian McCaffrey plays 58 of 68 snaps. He gets 22 carries to 5 carries for Elijah Mitchell in a blowout, in a 30-7 blowout. They're feeding Christian McCaffrey. No worries about Elijah Mitchell. He is a pure handcuff at this point. And you can drop him unless you want him as your handcuff. If you got someone more important to pick up, Roschon Johnson, Justice Hill, Joshua Kelly, go do it. Because at this point, Elijah Mitchell does not have a role. He is a pure handcuff. As for the Rams, they've got 2 running backs with roles. Cam Akers is the running back, the early down back. 22 carries for Cam Akers to 15 for Kyren Williams. So Kyren Williams still involved in the offense too. But Cam Akers, 29 yards, 1.3 yards per carry on those 22 carries. Kyren Williams, 52 yards, only 3.5 yards per carry, but that's still a lot more efficient than what Cam Akers did. And it gets even worse for Cam Akers because Cam Akers ran 3 routes to Kyren Williams' 29 routes. We thought Cam Akers was a bell cow. We thought at worst Kyren Williams might spell him at times. This is a full-on committee. Kyren Williams is the satellite passing down back. He's DeAndre Swift. And Cam Akers is Jamal Williams. Except Kyren Williams got the 2 rushing touchdowns too. Awful news for Cam Akers. We'll see if he can get himself out of the doghouse, but not a great start for Cam Akers. And against the Seahawks limited him pretty good. What about the Seahawks running backs, though? Well, it's pretty clear. It's Kenneth Walker and everyone else. Kenneth Walker plays 32 out of 50 snaps. That is 64% of the snaps for Kenneth Walker. Charbonnet and DJ Dallas play 11 snaps each. Zach Charbonnet has not beat DJ Dallas out. It was listed on the depth chart. that DJ Dallas was number 2. Obviously, sometimes they defer to the veteran, but no. DJ Dallas, Zach Charbonnet, they are on the same level, which is backup behind Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker, 18 carries out of the 33 carries, 18 routes run for Kenneth Walker, 7 routes for Zach Charbonnet, and 5 for DJ Dallas. So Kenneth Walker is the satellite back, the third down back, the receiving back. That's Kenneth Walker. He's also the running back. 12 carries for Kenneth Walker, 3 for Zach Charbonnet, 2 for DJ Dallas. And the backup running backs look significantly worse than Kenneth Walker as a rusher. 5.3 yards per carry for Kenneth Walker. Zach Charbonnet, 3.7 yards. DJ Dallas, 2 yards. And then Kenneth Walker, he catches all 4 of his targets, only 3 yards. But 4 receptions for Kenneth Walker is a big deal for a running back that doesn't have an illustrious pass-catching background. Love to see it. Kenneth Walker is an every down back. He is the bell cow. He is the workhorse. He is the guy for the Seattle Seahawks. Zach Charbonnet and DJ Dallas. If anything happened to Kenneth Walker, it would be a committee because DJ Dallas and Zach Charbonnet are just pure backups. Finally, our final thing to note around the NFL is just how bad the Arizona Cardinals are. Zach Ertz had the most targets out of any tight end. 10 targets for Zach Ertz. Incredible. Coming off the ACL tear. Good for Zach Ertz. He catches 6 of them. 6 receptions for Zach Ertz. And it results in 21 yards. Zach Ertz isn't going to be relevant for your fantasy team. Josh Dobbs willing to check it down. Zach Ertz not going to break a tackle. Not going to go anywhere. And the Cardinals, unless Kyler Murray comes back, like I expect him to, but for now, the Arizona Cardinals, they're getting that 101. They're getting Caleb Williams, and I can't trust any of their players in fantasy football, except James Conner, pure volume play. But Marquise Brown, I can't trust him right now. Rondale Moore, absolutely not. Greg Dortch, absolutely not. Zach Ertz, leading in receptions, or leading in targets, all tight ends, 21 yards. Brutal.